Greetings, fellow travelers. Welcome on in. This is the RPG Cave, level 170. I'm one of your hosts, the level 199 human Dark Lord, Ryan Turford, and I am joined once again in the same week by the level 199 Elf Bat Alchemist, Dr. Garret. How's it going, Garret?
It's going well. So I look over to my right, Ryan. There's a blue sky news feed going on, and I'm following Blueberg. I'm just reading the title of this. What do they call it? Posts? I'll just go with post. Sure. A new book explores the daring modernist architecture that France's Communist Party built during the post-war era.
Interesting.
That is the most random subject I've ever heard in my life. From a Bloomberg article, the modernist architecture of the French Communist Party.
I mean, that's a sentence that exists.
That it exists. I'm sure there's a communist party in France, but I did not know there's some modern architecture in the post-World War. Post-war era? Yeah.
I mean, it's weird that a lot of them would end up in France because France isn't really a communist nation. But I mean, there are in every nation. Like there's a Canadian communist party that exists. It's very small, but it exists.
I'm sure there's an American Communist Party, and there's just, but you know how the communists are. They're like revolutionists or whatever.
Right.
They're very modern thinking, forward thinking people. So I'm sure the French people really like that.
Yeah.
But anyways, okay. There you go. That's my random spiel.
Random post from Blue Sky. Excellent. Just to start off the show in style.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, we'll get to other things in just a second. Before we do that, of course, we should probably. Oh my God, Jordan's just like Anyways, this of course is the RPG Cave where we talk about RPGs all the time. So let's clear the dungeon so we can get to the raid boss as quickly as possible. So if you like what we do and you want to support the show, there's a number of amazing ways you can do that. Number one, if you're watching the live stream right meow, or at youtube.com/carpoolgaming or twitch.tv/carpoolgaming live. Don't forget to hit that like button if you're watching on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Hit that follow button if you're on Twitch. And maybe consider hitting that subscribe button on Twitch if you feel so inclined to do so. If you like cool emotes, you can definitely hit that there. Also, if you're listening on audio feeds, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well. Or leave us a nice Apple Podcast review or a rating if you're listening on Spotify. We even have comments over on Spotify if you want to leave us comments over there. Of course, we've got one big podcast feed with the entire Carpool Gaming Cinematic Universe available over at patreon.com/carpoolgaming. And you could join up just like Xbox Skittle did, who joined up at the free trial. We've also got Sir Knight, who joined up at the free trial as well. So as folks may not know, we have a 7-day free trial on our Patreon for our exclusive tier, which is our most popular tier, where you get all the cool exclusive content that we do over on Patreon. So if you're interested in checking that out, head on over to patreon.com/carpoolgaming. I'm not going to do what they did on Nintendo Drive the other night, where it's like load up Netscape Navigator, go to http://www.patreon.com/carpoolgaming.
Why is it /? No, it's /.
You know what, Garret? I don't know how to slash it.
Sorry, I just had to look at my keyboard for a second and look at a URL. It is definitely / here. / in Linux? I don't know. We'll see.
Anyways, so, we've also got Big Dog 72, who upgraded to the $5 exclusive tier. That was the tier I just mentioned.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Big Dog. And of course, Riley King hopping on in as a gold member. So shout out to Riley King, Big Dog 72, Sir Knight, and Xbox Skittle, who all joined the old Patreon this week.
Ryan, what is the flavor of an Xbox Skittle?
I mean, you would assume it's like a lime flavor.
Yeah, I was thinking Mountain Dew.
Or like Extreme. Just the flavor of Extreme.
Just a flavor of Extreme. Like jam Red Bull into a flavor.
Yeah.
That's Xbox Skittle.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah. Of course, we've got new Patreon content out there as well for those that are so inclined to listen. Of course, Bowser's Pants episode will be coming out tomorrow. So you can go check that out as well, where she answers a bunch of questions. And of course, we've got a new episode of Campfire that came out this week with Seth and Nagachaka. So make sure you go check that out as well. Jordan answers the question what an Xbox Skittle would taste like and just says the word disappointment.
Oh man, that hit hard. That hit the heart, man.
That is a little bit sad. I mean, Garrett, I'm even wearing an Xbox t-shirt today. So.
Oh man, I have a couple of those. I don't know. What's your thought process over I would say maybe the past year, but past week has kind of been like, let's just give into it. Let's just lay over.
Honestly,
we're kind of done.
I'm excited for it, if I'm being honest. Because I think that honestly it's a good move. Sean Capri asked a good question. Is the entire episode today going to be a spoiler cast? So the answer to this question, Garrett, is no.
No.
We will warn you all when we go directly into spoilers because Garrett
That's correct.
I want to get Garrett's kind of like non-spoilery opinions on Metaphor. So we'll get those before we go into spoilers. Also, we got Garrett's 3 things coming up after this as well. So plenty of content today without spoilers. So
that's correct.
But yeah, we will formally warn everyone when we go into spoilers. I even have a fancy banner prepared.
We'll have a big red banner, the spoiler. It's like a news flash, in your news station. Spoiler, yeah. Right?
I mean, to be fair, Sean, most of the episode's going to be spoilers. Just saying. So
yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that game.
yeah. So
Man.
Anyways, we also, of course, have our website, carpoolgaming.com, where you can get yourself some cool Carpool Gaming merch, including our RPG Cave t-shirt or any of the other merch based on any of their Carpool Gaming shows. So make sure to check that out over at carpoolgaming.com. But now, Garrett, give us your 3 things, my friend.
3 things, man. I just, of course, the first thing I got to shout out, and everyone knows this because I screamed into the high heavens. I got really lucky. The NVIDIA 50 series, 5080 and the 5090 just got released a couple of days ago. It was opening the links on Best Buy at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Was it on Wednesday or Thursday? I even don't remember. I think it was Wednesday. Anyways, no, it's Thursday. It was Thursday morning because I had a meeting right afterwards. They opened it up 6 a.m. I got into the queue in Best Buy. Let me tell you, I think Best Buy does it best now with the high demanding products. What they do is that once you get to the item and once it's unlocked, you get into a queue, and then that queue, they'll check. You'll get placed in line, and then they'll check if they have inventory and kind of go through the whole process. It was still pretty rough going through, but at least the site wasn't crashing.
Yeah.
So I kept pressing the button. It's like, oh, we're sold out. Okay, let's press the button, add a cart, do the whole spiel. I did that for another 45 minutes.
Oh my God.
And they were doing staggered releases with the 50A and 5090. Eventually got to the point, it got into my cart. Even in my cart, it was pretty hard to get through this process. You only have 10 minutes until that item gets away from your cart, because it'll still say like sold out or error on your shipping or error on your payment or whatever. And so I kept just clicking through, and then I was able to put $100 gift card in there, fortunately. So I did that, put my Best Buy store card in there, and went through payment. I was able to get a 5080 Founders Edition. That was pretty lucky.
And you didn't even have to go and camp out in line like those people I told you about that camped out like a week early.
Yeah, and so I think people had a lot more luck with 5080 because there's a lot more in stock. People may be wanting the 5090. Have you heard the stock of 5090 was so low? It was less than about on average less than 100 total in the US online.
That's not
or at Micro Centers, and I watched Gamers Nexus video over it. It's just like the stock was just so low that no one got a 5090.
Yeah,
and even AIB's pushed their releases later to early February, because but anyways, yeah, the 5090 is a much worse situation than the 5080. Well, I'm very excited to have a Founders Edition. I didn't need to get a third-party manufacturer. I'm getting the NVIDIA version, and I'm looking forward to building my PC. I know people are gonna punch me, but I'm not building it right now. I'm building it later when we're able to move and get a condo or house later on. I just don't have space right now to do stuff like that. So,
but there will be time. There will be a time for that.
There will be a time, and it will be this year.
Yep.
So can't wait.
Are you worried at all about building your computer later with the tariffs though coming?
Not so much with the tariffs.
Because that'll probably affect the prices, right? On
a little
chips.
bit.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, definitely would have on the 5080 for sure.
Yeah. Well. Okay. So, I'm wondering what the specifics are on that. So Trump reinstated like tariffs for China, 10% levy this weekend, also 25% on Canada and Mexico.
Yep.
I don't know what's the specifics on Taiwan design-based chips manufactured in China. Like, it gets so weird,
Yeah.
like it's like, okay, yeah, some of the parts are manufactured in China, but it was designed or assembled in Taiwan, and I don't know. I honestly am not too scared about the rest of the PC parts as much. I think I'm a little bit more worried maybe the AMD CPU that I need to get, but other than that, I'm not too worried.
That's good. Because yeah, like I said, I know that NVIDIA is going to be hit hard by them. So I was just like, it's good that you got like the card out of the way, I think.
Yeah, which is so, I don't want to get into it so much, but
yeah,
it's just so weird having tariffs on something that's probably the most vital resource that you want to bring in to your country. Yep. I don't know. Like, logically, it just sounds a little counterintuitive. Anyways, we don't have to get into it.
Of course.
Second thing, weather update. It is raining outside, Ryan. I don't know if you hear, but it's just been a constant rain for the past 2 days in San Francisco. It's been much needed rain. We haven't had rain in about a month or something like that. So it's good. It's good to have rain, and we're gonna have rain for the next 4 or 5 days. So
okay,
there you go.
Nice. Yeah, it's bright and sunny here, Garrett, but it's like minus 14 Celsius. So
that's cold. I just know that's cold.
It's a little bit cold, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like normal weather for you. This is like minus 14.
It's like normal winter weather for us. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds good. Third thing, I actually was just seeing this in Blue Sky as well. It's a very short article that I'm putting there. It's like, but it's just basically Andy Robinson saying the concept of permanent work locations for certain BioWare employees already happened. Even like relocating BioWare employees to different EA locations, and now they're telling their employees you're permanently relocated.
Yep.
I don't know, that think about you as an employee getting told to be relocated and then permanently relocated. That's just wild to me.
Yeah.
It's a wild thought.
But I mean, it's one of those things where like they do that, but also they're like anytime I've experienced that type of situation, Garrett, in my line of work or seen that happen to people that I work with, it's usually like, hey, your position isn't available at the old where it was before, so we have this new position that you can be relocated to. You're allowed to turn this down, but this is really the only job we really have for you, and you can kind of like decide from there if you want to do that. So it's like I think that's probably what they did with a lot of the employees here, where they probably like, just knowing the entertainment industry and knowing that this happens sometimes, that especially with companies that kind of work around the world in this capacity with multiple studios in different locations, that's probably where they were probably like, hey, we're relocating you here. If you don't want to do this, then you're more than welcome to kind of walk away. But they kind of have to like, I think they're able to do it because it's like a lateral move for a lot of these employees, where they're like. They're like it's the same position but at a different place, and they can make the argument, I think, to government watchdogs that their job is declared redundant, and this is kind of the only option they have available to them.
Yeah, I get it. It's just like kind of hard to. I would say like hear that, hey, you got to be relocated. I'm just like, ooh,
Yeah.
It's a rough thing to hear, but I guess that just happens in the.
It's just like that episode of Friends where Chandler gets relocated to Oklahoma just because, and it becomes this whole this arc where he's stuck in Oklahoma, traveling back and forth every week until he was like, I'm going to go find a different job. So
that's a good reach. I mean, I've watched Friends, so I've seen all the way to the end, but yeah, that one particularly, Chandler, he like unintentionally like went for the job though.
Yes, that's true because they were looking for volunteers to go to Oklahoma and he was asleep during the meeting, so he just
he was asleep. He's like, "Hey, Chandler, are you gonna do this?" He's like, he wakes up and like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember that whole thing. But
yeah.
Anyways, bonus thing, Ryan.
Oh, hold on. Do we want to answer Yarden's question from the chat?
Oh, sure. Sorry, I'm not seeing the chat.
Oh, it's all good. So Yarden asks from the chat question, is Mass Effect in trouble in your opinion based on this? I would say I'm 50-50 on if that game ever comes out. That's how worried I'm about it.
Yeah. It sounded like this was going on. Like, I don't know. Was it going on before even Dragon Age came out?
It sounds. I mean, we don't have definite confirmation either way, so I don't want to speculate too much. But it sounds to me like if I had to wager a guess, I'd say it probably was like towards when they were about to release the game.
That's what that's what I feel too when I was reading that article and the timeline of things.
Because we know like the layoffs that were part of this just happened this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't bet on that game. I don't know, like bet on that game to even be of quality or come out.
Yeah.
That's the two things.
I mean, it sounds like they've got some quality people working on it, but it's a much smaller team than Dragon Age. So it's like, how quickly are they even able to put out that game at this point? So it's just like, and by the time they, it gets close to the finish line, they might just run out of resources, or EA just might just drop it at that point, right? So yeah,
and people know that this isn't the same BioWare as it was before. So I'm sure there's some hardcore fans that are excited for Mass Effect, but I think the overall public that just knows, like, oh, we're not that. You got to really prove yourself, and in this day and age, proving yourself in games is almost impossible. It takes a lot of convincing to get someone's day one purchase.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, as someone who loves Mass Effect like me, I hope this game comes out, but I'm not going to get my hopes up at this point because I don't want to, otherwise I don't want to get disappointed later if they inevitably just come out and say it's canceled.
Yeah. Rough.
Yeah, it's tough. But anyways, secret fourth thing that you had.
Secret fourth thing. Bonus thing. You see the little red stickers here on my windows, Ryan?
I have to make your window bigger to see them, but yes, I see.
Oh, okay, sorry. But anyways, yes, these red stickers are Chinese New Year decorations.
That's
Happy
right.
Chinese New Year, Ryan. It happened Tuesday, the 29th.
Yep.
The year of the snake. So it was a big celebration. Fiona made dumplings, her local like kind of like traditional filling for the dumplings. It was really good. So
nice.
Yeah. So
cool. That's exciting. Well, Garrett, it is now time to read from the sacred texts because it's time to talk all about Metaphor. Now, again, like I mentioned off the top, we're not diving into spoilers right this second, but we will be very shortly. Garrett, before we dive into spoilers, though, I'm curious to know how you feel about Metaphor. Now, people already kind of know how I feel about it if they've been listening to the show for a while, but just to kind of recap in case anyone's new to the show, and if this is your first episode, I liked Metaphor a lot. It was my favorite game from last year, and I'm excited to talk about all the spoilers with you to kind of dig into why I like this game so much. But Garrett, tell me what you thought about it since you just are playing it for the first time now.
Yeah. So prior to recording, I confessed to Ryan I am like on the last like couple bosses here. I actually just went through a walkthrough and just see what was at the end here. So I'm on like the very last step. So just to let you know, for people context, that's where I'm at. I'm not completely finished with the ending here.
Right.
But I played 99.999% and then 100% of the side quests. So I feel like I can give an opinion on this game.
Yeah, I think so.
No, and I maxed out the archetypes and everything.
Yeah, we probably won't go too deep on the ending anyway, so it's all good.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so this game it's great. It's a great Atlas RPG. I'm glad that it's a separate thing than Persona. I'm glad it's following the same format as Persona, with the timetable and going through dungeons and whatever. But it's such a different the setting is high fantasy. You're going through, I would say, the story is less, more materialized and grounded, but more metaphor, as one would call it. A lot of imagination, a lot of transferring of thoughts and themes throughout the game. But yeah, that's my overall feel. I applaud this team doing something pretty different and pretty refreshing with that. I think it's still a little bit long.
Yeah, of course.
I wish they would really think about and take the time to try to cut a lot of the fat out. And they kind of have this problem with, I would say, with Persona 5 as well.
Yeah. Although will say I personally thought it was less bloated than like something like Persona 5 Royal was.
Right. I haven't played Persona 5 Royal, so yeah, still, to me, I'm 120 hours in. I'm still going through the game. That's just, and then just granted, I probably like 20 to 30 hours. It's me putting it on the controller or stepping away. So it's probably close to 80 to 90 hours that I like effectively playing. But I still feel like when I'm going through these types of games, there's just a little too much writing. Mm-hmm. That's just my kind of standpoint. And maybe it's just my preference. Like, okay, I love the story. I love the beats. I love the voice acting. I like going through it. But you don't have to have every single character comment on every single action.
But they're using that to build the world building carrot.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that was my one gripe about this game. It's just, and I think it's just a problem that we have with Atlas RPGs. So it's not
like they're all like that. Like that. This is nothing new. Like Persona, you go play Persona 3 Reload, and it's the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. So, anyways, let's get into just like mechanics. Like let's go into combat. I think it's very well made. Of course, it's just kind of an evolution from Persona and Shin Megami Tensei, maybe a mix between. There's a lot of different pacing surrounding it. Of course, you're focusing on its turn-based combat. You're focusing on weaknesses of the monster in order to gain extra attacks. And so you have your character, and of course, instead of a Persona monster, you have an archetype, and there's a fixed amount of archetypes out there that you discover throughout the game. And fortunately, every character, depending on what you spend your mag points on, any character can be any archetype you assign it to. Just making sure you pass the criteria and everything. So it's kind of cool, highly customizable. And then as you go through the combat, it's pretty standard stuff, which I like. So I don't know. What do you think about the archetype system and the combat?
So first of all, I liked the archetype system. I liked that you I think one of the things I don't love about Persona is like it pigeonholes you into keeping just the party members that you really like, because they all are kind of stuck with like one skill set throughout the entire game, or they're trying to encourage you to use other party members, but I end up just sticking with core members, where I like the idea of like, you can really customize your characters a lot more with the archetype system. Like I like the fact that it's not just the main character that can really be customized. It's all the party members. And I like the archetype system, like leveling up your characters that way, and getting different archetypes. And then they all have like kind of like their own like final archetype that it's kind of like specific to that character and unique to them, which I thought was really interesting and cool. And as far as the combat, like one of the things, my favorite things about the combat that I talked about, back when we kind of did my initial impressions on this, was how fast the combat goes versus other, games of this ilk. Obviously, boss fights still take kind of the standard length that you'd expect from an Atlas RPG, but being able to at least inflict some damage on the open world first before you go into battle just really sped up the combat for me in a really interesting way, which is one of the reasons why I actually like this game a lot. Was just I felt the combat wasn't nearly as bogged down as something like Persona. Because Garret, I feel like if the combat was slower, like you'd be probably tacking on like 10 to 20 more hours to the combat if it didn't move at the pace it does in this game.
I definitely agree with you. So yeah, I guess I mentioned about the turn-based. Of course, we should talk about the new flavor of the action-based combat they were mentioning. So yeah, you'll have an opportunity to do some action combat against monsters, and then once you hit the monsters a certain amount of times, you can get into a turn-based battle and have an advantage over them.
Like sometimes they're at like half health by the time you get into the battle, so you can go through it quickly if you know their weaknesses.
And depending on the characters, the companions they have in your party, you can do more than half, which is pretty cool. I enjoyed that part. I find but at the same time, you could be at a disadvantage as well, right? The enemies hits you once and you are ambushed. And sometimes it can be dangerous situations.
I was going to say, I think it hurts way more than like something like Persona does.
Oh yeah, for sure. Every time I'm into an ambush, I'm like, okay, crap, I'm getting into this. Typically what I do, especially in late game, is that it's a guaranteed runaway. So I'm like, okay, let them, do some damage to me. Let me run away from the turn-based battle, heal myself, get back into it, see if I can, get an advantage over them, pretty much. Yeah. But yeah, it did add a certain flavor. I did enjoy once you are a strong enough like level that you can just beat them without getting into turn-based combat. You just hit them a couple times and you're like, okay, you're done with that monster. I'm like, great.
And you still get you still get some XP. It's very minute, but you still get some. But like in the early game, if you were like really struggling with the combat, you could really like grind up really fast if you just take out a bunch of like go into an infinitely spawning room of like lower level enemies and just demolish them and just level up your characters like 3 or 4 levels and then go back to the area that you're struggling with.
Yeah, pretty much. So grinding is I would say much easier, much more streamlined than previous games, especially Persona 5, because you just have to get into turn-based combat all the time.
I will say in this game in particular though, there are like or at least I found while playing, like 2 difficulty spikes at different 2 different portions of the points in the game where the difficulty goes from here to here very quickly. So you have to like even if you were like mauling down enemies in like the last dungeon you were in, when you go into the next dungeon you're like getting your butt kicked, so you have to like
there was a borderline of like, this is like Persona. It's like kind of cool going through these monsters and don't need a grind or whatever, to, this is Shin Megami Tensei. Like, no joke. Make sure you know what you're doing, type of bosses, like. And what I really enjoyed about kind of these different dungeons, not so much the level design, and I think people comment on a lot that the level design is pretty bland, pretty simple design. It's not meant to be very overtly complicated, I would say. But I didn't.
And I think it plays into the nature of the dungeons too, because you're going to more places. Like you're not just going into one, perfectly crafted palace at a time like Persona. You're like going into like many, many different dungeon locations.
Yes, many different locations. But also like the certain dungeons. has certain monsters with certain weaknesses, and then you kind of have to figure out which archetypes are an advantage in certain dungeons over others. When you have the wrong archetypes in your party and wrong characters, the struggle is real. It's like a lot more complicated, and you're just facing an uphill battle. So yeah, make sure you listen in on the folks in like local towns, and they'll tell you, hey, these archetypes are good for this area. And then they also even tell you the boss, like, oh, they're weak to fire, but they're immune to ice, and watch out for ice moves or something like that.
Or like doing certain attacks will anger them, and they'll do like double damage or something.
Yeah, so there's certain mechanics on the bosses that you want to avoid or want to go after, and they'll tell you that as well. So yeah, it was very more specific on how to beat bosses and monsters. There, you could brute force some of them, but it looks like most of the parts, like, just make sure you have the right archetypes and the right move set, and you're pretty much good to go.
Yeah.
So so archetypes I want to get back into. There's a lot of different ones, and then you do level them up as you equip these archetypes and go throughout the game. And that makes you advance there could be a string of archetypes that it's kind of like Pokemon in a sense, where you max out the level, and then you can advance to the next like tier of the archetype in that lineage. I think late game that was pretty important to make sure that you go through that process and planning it out. And then especially with the last archetype, you really had to plan it out for the final one for each companion.
Because you have to have you have to level up specific archetypes in order to unlock it with each character.
Yeah. And it was I got to that point in the game, so I'm maxed out on those royal archetypes or whatever. So and then I really enjoyed, you leveled them up, and then your max rank is 20, and then once you hit 20 and you're still equipping it, you can still, let's say, gain items.
Yep.
As you go through battles with it, you gain items that help you level up other archetypes.
Yeah, it's you get like mag points or whatever.
Yeah, you get mag points, and then you can select any character with any archetype to increase their rank for that character. So I thought it was a good balance.
Yeah, like it's at a reduced rate, but it's still like, if you need them to be that archetype for that dungeon or whatever, I think it's a good alternative.
Mm-hmm. And the archetypes have a fixed move set, but you can transfer over or share moves if you have learned it for that character with like the other archetypes.
Yeah.
And I find that to be so helpful in a lot of different situations, especially as you said, the difficulty spike, and we'll get into it in spoilers, but once I get into there was just a strategy I was like, that's required. That is like absolutely required to do. So there's a lot of complexity in the turn-based combat in the archetype system for sure.
Yeah, it's a very complex game. Like it's but at the same time, I never felt like overwhelmed by its complexity versus like doing something like Path of Exile and going through its skill tree, which is like one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah, it's not like a wall of text and equips that you have to read out and try to optimize. They do a pretty good job of streamlining everything. The really thing you just got to plan out is the archetypes, and that's pretty much it. Yeah. The equips are very straightforward in this game. So
exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
We don't have to touch the story too much, but I am interested to hear your opinion on just the writing itself.
I thought it was top notch. I thought it was amazing.
It was like one of the best written video games of all time.
Yeah.
It's very high quality. And the way it goes through the themes and each of the dungeons and the characters, like, man, it's like, it is a visual novel. It's like reading a book. It is. It reads like a book, and it's very deep. So yeah, if people are into that, I highly encourage, like, try to go through this game.
I was going to say, for people who enjoy really good narratives in video games, like, this is honestly one of the best of the modern era, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, 100%. So, yeah, we don't have to get into details of it, but just know that the writing is, really.
Like, I actually think, like, and correct me if you feel differently about this, Garrett, but I feel like the writing here is probably the strongest of any Atlas game, even much more than any of the Persona games, I think.
I agree.
Like, it sets a new bar for the writing.
Yeah, for sure. I certainly agree with that. I think, it's a matter of preference if you enjoyed the story more. But in terms of the writing and the quality of writing and the pacing of the writing it's the best out of the Atlas RPGs. So, cool. Is there anything else you want to gloss over?
No, I think we might bring up some other stuff as we talk about the story, but I think it's time, Garrett.
It's time.
I think it's time to shift into spoilers. So, folks, I am now activating spoiler mode for Metaphor ReFantazio. We're going to give you about a minute or two to get out before we spoil you for the game. So this is your 1 minute warning, Garrett. So now we can start talking about the weather again, Garrett, because the weather it's still sunshine.
Is the sunshine and cold over there?
Still sunshine and cold.
Is there like ice anywhere, or is it just dry?
No, believe it or not, there's like not a lot of snow. There was like a lot of ice this week when I had to go to work, but right now it's actually not that bad.
I was traveling back from Dallas, and my connection was in Denver, Colorado, and it was pretty snowy over there. I was like, oh, this is a nice change of scenery, seeing all the snow, and they know how to handle snow, so they just pour salt pretty much everywhere. So
that's good that they at least understand how snow works, because it not you can't say that about every other Texas city.
Oh, no, in Denver.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said Dallas. That's my bad.
Oh, sorry. I was coming from Dallas.
Okay. Gotcha.
No, Dallas would have no idea what it's doing with ice.
Yeah.
I'm sure people who snowed in Houston had no idea what to do at all, because they're so used to hurricane season.
That's true.
Not snow, which is so weird.
Yeah. If anything, they probably would just lose power to the city, and like all of the cars would like fly off the road and stuff. It would be ridiculous.
Yeah, end of the world, basically.
Yep. Well, Garrett, we vamped for about a minute and a half.
Okay.
So I think we're good to now officially enter spoiler territory. So
spoilers.
Keep in mind, everything we're about to talk about is spoilers for a Metaphor, in case you're just for some reason joined. But again, we've also got the banner down there indicating that we've got spoilers going on. So, Garrett, we can finally talk about spoilers. So first thing I'm going to ask you, and this is the question I've had for you since you told me that you got to this pivotal moment in the game. When you killed Luis for the first time, did you think you actually killed him?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Oh, when I first killed Luis, I was just like, that's a little too easy. It's just, I'm like, how many hours in? Like 60-ish hours in? It's not even like near the end. I'm like, we're not done with this game. Like, come on now. Like, I knew there was something up other than that. I did not realize how much more there was after that. There's a lot more after that, but yeah, killing Luis for the first time is interesting. It kind of, we can get into like Luis's villain arc.
Right.
I think it's what I really enjoyed about the story of this game is his motivations going throughout the game, his justifications, his, albeit like weird and twisted. He tries to, justify himself out of true like motivation of what he wants to do as king. So yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting for sure.
Because Garrett, when I got to that point, I was like, wait, we killed Luis. What's going on here? But then I was like, I was thinking, well, because I've seen this in other RPGs before. So I was like, maybe Luis wasn't actually the real villain. Maybe they're actually positioning where you actually have to fight Forden. Like maybe he's like the real villain. Yeah. And then you don't even fight Forden at all. He just
Yeah, I was surprised by the whole sequence of events in that pivotal moment. So you killed Luis, and then man, there was just some things about like with the was it with the sword or the staff or whatever?
It was the spear that you get from the tribe.
The spear, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. Sorry.
And then viewing, they had to like play out certain events where they want to make sure they have the public's like kind of agreement or majority. And yeah, with Forden, but on stage, and then Luis coming back to life. That was pretty interesting to see, because he actually did die though.
He actually did die, yes, because his necromancer buddy that you fight, who comes back after the first palace, after you assume that you killed him, like comes back and like resurrects him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and then you face Zorba a couple more times, which was annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, Luis comes back to life and then kills Forden like that. Pretty interesting to see.
Yeah. Like I was not expecting that. Like the first time I played it, I was like, whoa, God, that's good and crazy. Avastation, Nellen. Oh God, spoilers. We'll have to catch this later. Apologies. We tried.
Yes.
We tried. We have the spoiler warning along the bottom.
Metaphor spoilers are in effect. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we're so sorry if we spoiled you. But make sure to check out the episode later. We do have non-spoilery content in the episode. But
yes, we do in the beginning. Other than the pivotal moment there, how did you feel of the kind of the journey, the quest of your main protagonist and your and meeting companions along the way? What did you think of the whole journey?
I thought it was really, really cool how they had it set up. First of all, one of the things that I did while I was playing Garret was every single time you like kind of, because when you're traveling through the world, they'll get to like a specific destination just to like get out and take in the sights. And like every time that happened, I would like take a picture of that
beautiful
moment. And they're like all on my phone still.
Nice.
Of these like beautiful locations where the characters are at. And they're usually like little tiny specks. Is like it like zooms out and checks, it like shows the panorama of crazy stuff. Like I love that aspect, especially because when I was playing it, I had a review copy, so I wasn't able to take screenshots on my Xbox. So I had to like physically use my camera to take those photos. But I liked how I liked that whole journey aspect of it, where like there was something to the way that they had the kind of like the calendar system set up in this game where, you know, you were going from place to place. And it almost felt like a road trip in a way, almost like the same feeling you had in Persona Strikers, like that game a little bit. Like I liked that aspect. I thought it was really cool. And you kind of like getting to meet the characters along the way and stuff like that. It felt like you were going on a little trip, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was interesting the way they traverse was on that gauntlet runner throughout many different places, and they kind of justify themselves the fast traveling system. It's like, oh yeah, if you've been there, now you can instantly teleport over there. I was like, that's an interesting justification to do that. But yeah, no, you're right. I like the going from place to place. I like the conceptual art. It's like mainly like just beautiful, like hand drawn art going throughout the game. And then I did enjoy going through each of the dungeons and each of the places and like what's going on, what's wrong with this town or whatever. And it's like, okay, let's see if we can defeat the boss or whatever. So
Yeah.
I did enjoy the connection to reality in this game, and it opens up a lot later in the game. But you know, in the beginning of the game, you just know that you're facing monsters that look hideous. They look terrible, and they're like, "Oh, these are humans."
Yeah,
it's like that's an interesting term.
And even then, like when you look at the monster designs themselves, like a lot of the ones, especially the bosses in particular, like are actual designs of like fusions between humans and like specific animals. Like the first boss that you fight is like a professor with like, you know, really, really like nerdy glasses that is also like a big owl boss or whatever. So I thought that was like really interesting how they kind of incorporated it in. Because again, like it goes back to the initial trailer where they talked about the idea that this world is a fantasy world of our creation, but also to this world, our world is a fantasy to them, which I thought was really interesting. And that plays throughout the whole story. That theme plays throughout the whole story as well, until you get to kind of the end point that I know that you're not haven't gotten to yet. That comes into play later as well. So, which I thought was really, 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 really interesting how they handled that aspect of it.
How did you think about the kind of the sudden realization of your main protagonist and then the Yufa or
the Elda?
That's it. Elda actually being the humans. Well, everyone in that world are humans. In a previous life or a previous generation.
It's just the Elda are the ones that are like non-mutated humans.
Yeah, they're the non-mutated humans, basically. I thought that was pretty interesting. I kind of suspected that was the thing.
Yeah.
To be quite honest with you. At first I thought Elda was like, oh yeah, there's just a little sparkle in the eyes or something like that. But then you soon realize like, that's just... It just looks like a human to me. Like,
well, it's something that it didn't really hit me until you get to the Elda village and you see other Eldas. Because remember, throughout the entire game, you really don't meet other Elda along the way.
You don't.
Because they're supposed to be a rare species. So you're not really meeting other Elda as you go. So until you got to the Elda village, I had never thought about that until I got there. I was like, oh, before they even told me, and I was like, oh, this is definitely what's up then. Like these are like the humans from the ancient world.
And then going throughout the dungeon in Etria, the island, and then connecting it to our world and as a post-apocalyptic way.
Yep.
I thought that was super neat. I think at that point I'm like, oh, that makes a lot more sense. There's the connection.
Especially if you think about the novel that the main protagonist is reading, because he's reading a novel of our world, but it's a more advanced version of our world where it's like the technology is really advanced because it's telling the story of our world before it fell to ruin by, people wanting to become gods. So they turn into the grotesque human monsters that you see that then cause the world to be destroyed. That then kind of led to this world kind of sprouting up out of it.
Yeah. And I did, touching with the novel, I did enjoy the kind of the themes surrounding this, this book. It really speaks a lot about utopia.
Yep.
It speaks a lot about, every person being equal, every person, being at peace and having a technology, regardless of race or gender or of social class. But even with a concept like that, even with a, let's say, not perfected, but like a reformed mindset like that, and so advanced, there's still always conflict. There's still always some type of device of ruin that can crumble a civilization. I thought that was pretty interesting to tell. Throughout the game.
It's also interesting too, because like you talked about Luis earlier in his kind of motivations and stuff, and he's also reading the book along with the protagonist, and he's influenced by the book in a different way because the protagonist is like influenced by the book and wanting to create that utopia where everyone's nice to each other, kind of like what's outlined by that theme in the book. But like Luis is kind of trying to do the same thing, but his methods are just different. Where his utopia is that all the strong will survive and the weak will die, and that will lead to like equality and like that a pure society,
Yeah, it's a natural selection, like kind of mentality. Is like, man, just get rid of the weak, shed the weak off, and then only the strong will survive, and now everyone would be equal. It's a very interesting mentality.
Like they both read the same book, but they had two different interpretations from it, which I thought was really interesting.
And then hearing Luis's origins was pretty interesting as well. So he's actually human.
Yep.
He takes off the little horns.
I like how no one notices the little like band holding the horns together on his head.
Yeah, he's like, okay, I'm gonna take it off now.
Yeah,
it's like
how does it perfectly fit under his hair that no one would notice that?
I know. He just has such luscious hair growing out of it.
Or how is it that the horns are so realistic that like people would think they're real when they're obviously fake?
Yeah, I don't know. And people believe anything, but as far as I recall, Luis is from the Elder Village as well.
Yeah.
But and his family is a family of doctors.
Yep.
And then, but they were massacred by Forden and the Sanctism order to get rid of the Elder Village, and that just kind of started his whole. I wouldn't say revenge plot, right? It's not revenge at all in this game. It's more like a revelation of like, oh, this is what we need to, this is how I'm going to shape this society and try to lead with that, So that was interesting. What do you think about the Sancticism? The whole religion part? It seemed like a whole third party, but very instrumental. In this game.
Well, it seemed like they were basically just trying to be like the one religion to kind of rule the world kind of thing. Like I knew that they were like the Sanctus Church was up to no good from the very beginning of this game. Like that was, I felt in a lot of ways they were kind of like a very, very like silly kind of evil church in a way where it's like, I like their beliefs were like comically evil in some ways where, they're like, well, it's so evil. It just you kind of have to laugh because it's so. I'm like, well, because that's like they're written in such a like a not so interesting way to me. That's just
okay, yeah, that's interesting. I felt a little different with them. I felt like they were very similar to like I would say I would say the religious system of Christianity in itself, not the religion, not the belief system.
They were a blend of like a couple of different religions, like real world religions.
Yeah, but the structure of it is very an established state religion.
Right.
That's very that we obviously see here as well. And what I've noticed is like they did a pretty good job in some of the side stories. There's good and bad people in that factor. So you can tell that, Forden and then other people probably up top are kind of trying to pull the strings, try to be the puppet masters.
They have like that evil council that they have.
That's the thing. I wish they explored a little bit more about that. They did not get into that.
But at some point in the game, they kind of just like brush them away and you kind of just, they don't matter anymore.
Yeah. They were trying to allude to something. I wish they did some. So when I was going throughout this game and they were going through that part, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's something big going to happen with that evil council or whatever. But nothing really happened with it, which was, I think, sort of disappointing. I think the writers were like, okay, let's try to figure out if we can implement something. And then they just eventually kind of ran out of ideas and like,
they kind of just peter off. Like basically after Forden dies, like they're not really and everything that happens with Juna's sisters afterwards, like after all that stuff happens, they're kind of like they you kind of just drop them. But the Sanctus Church at that point also kind of just gets dropped pretty hard from the story at that point too.
So yeah, I wish they kind of followed through with that arc. I just felt like, okay, so all the other scenes that I watched earlier in the game really don't mean much or anything in this game. So I
also was kind of disappointed too that you don't fight Forden's right hand man, like the monk, the warrior.
Oh, the monk guy, yeah.
Yeah, he's like, all right, we're gonna fight, and then something happens and you get away or whatever, and like we never fight him, but he keeps like challenging us to battle until eventually he becomes our ally at the end.
Yeah, poor guy, and then he just works at the church.
Yeah, exactly.
That was interesting.
But yeah, Garrett, what did you think about the whole thing with the prince and how your main character was a figment of his imagination throughout the course of the first half of the game, basically?
Yeah, I kind of suspected. I didn't expect it was the prince himself, But there was something weird going on with the main protagonist because there wasn't any context, any like or any person. I wouldn't say personality wise, but just like no memories of like previous things or experience or whatever.
He's got no memories, but for some reason Gallica has all these memories of him.
Yeah, it was a character without any memories, which is interesting. And then once we get to that point, I was like, okay, I guess we can pull this off. We can have this concept. I'm not like, I wasn't too convinced of the whole thing. It was more like, sure, let's kind of go through this arc and make sure that we're merging the prince and my main protagonist together and get the shiny new hair. Yeah. I was just along for the ride. I wasn't really like moved by it or anything like that.
Honestly, I hadn't given too much thought about it. So when that moment actually happened, it kind of got me a little bit. Where I was like, "Oh my god, that I didn't even think about this." The concept, like I knew something was up with him, but I didn't. The concept of him basically being a character that the prince made up in his mind that then took physical form, to me, just actually kind of shocked me in a way where I didn't see that aspect coming. Like I knew something was up with him and he had some kind of connection to the prince, but I didn't expect him to basically just be like a fantasy taken physical form. But I love that idea. I thought I liked the idea that they kind of thought outside the box with something like that.
For sure. Yeah, no, I can agree to that, but
because then you're still kind of like almost like a fantasy character even after you merge with the prince, because the prince basically dies and you kind of take over his body, and you're kind of like you and the prince kind of become one person after you fuse like together, thanks to like this fabricated story.
Yeah. So I thought it was an interesting kind of pathway of that arc. I was more like we're at the end point. Okay, that makes sense. Let's keep on with the story and see where it goes, type of deal. Yeah. So, other than that, man, pretty good game. Yeah. Overall.
I think so. But there's a couple. I have more questions for you. Who is your favorite party member?
Favorite party member? I know a lot of people liked Heisme a lot, and I do too. Heisme is a very good, well written out character. Yeah. I do like the inventor a lot, Nora or whatever. Okay. He's a funny guy. He loves inventing stuff.
He's also very excited all the time.
I love it. He's very excited. He's very motivated. He's so passionate about innovation, which I really kind of bond with. Like, he's a really cool character. I like Nora a lot. I think other than that, the other characters are pretty good. I like Yufa a lot. Yep.
Yufa's probably my favorite. I actually like Yufa a lot. Like, I especially because especially when you get to know her through her own like kind of like confidant quest line. And then actually some of the stuff you get to know from her like towards the end of the game as well, which what's also interesting about her character, Garret, is that even though there's no romance options in this game,
it's pretty romantic with Yufa.
You pick up pretty quickly that through the dialogue that Yufa and the main character have like a little thing going. That's like so obvious, because they don't do that with any of the other characters, just Yufa specifically, which I thought was an interesting choice for them to do, because again, we're so used to Persona games, Garret, where you get to like pick your favorite waifu, and that's like the person you're in a relationship with. But I liked the fact that they kind of had like they weren't like super open and obvious. And again, this is something that if you skip through some of the dialogue or didn't pay attention to it, you probably wouldn't even notice that it was there. But I liked the subtlety that they put in there, that like, oh, Yufa and the main protagonist are kind of like a thing.
No, I thought that was kind of cool, especially like the max rank of the confidant for Yufa. It was like, oh yeah, they're kind of a thing.
Yeah,
for sure. Cool.
I also like Juna a lot too. I thought I was a little bit worried at first that she would be kind of like a very like one-dimensional character, but then when you get to know her a lot more as well, like I kind of like her like storyline as well.
I did like Juna quite a bit. I like
she's
how
like a really complex character, which I liked.
yeah, she's complex, but she's on the outside, she's very confident,
Yep.
which I really enjoy. But like as you go throughout that confidant story, you slowly realize that she has her own insecurities and lack of confidence as well, and opens up quite a bit with the character. Which
I also like too that she wears like a 1970s dress and she dresses like someone from the 70s, which I thought was great.
Yeah. I did enjoy Del and Basilio's kind of arc as well. I didn't know what to think of them when they were introduced. Initially, I was like, oh my gosh, there's another couple of villains that I'm going to have to face. I was actually quite surprised to see, well, you slowly realize it, Basilio kind of like going with your kind of motivations and beliefs more than Luis. And then Del, I really enjoyed his personality, his character. He was always skeptic. He was the smart one. He was the sharp one. And then he was also careful, but he physically he looks small, but personality and like if you face him, I feel like he would be a very powerful villain. I was a little bit more afraid of Del than Luis. In some parts.
Because he's like very cunning.
He's cunning, yes. Yeah. So I think he understood the struggles and the kind of the worst parts of this world than anyone else. Yeah. He understood it.
Whereas Basilio, I felt like he was just too young when all the stuff kind of happens with their backstory, where he doesn't doesn't feel it the same way as Del does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Basilio kind of blocks it out of his mind a little bit, or he takes it one step at a time. But Del, with his experiences, it's pretty interesting to see that personality. Fortunately, he was kind of dead in the midpoint, but other than that, a lot of people die in this game.
Yeah,
which is quite interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, especially like a lot of people that you probably wouldn't expect from the first time you meet them, that they're the ones that you
murdered. From the very beginning, you're like, it's in the demo too.
Yep.
Like I was like, oh, you meet this character, he is really dead. Like he is out of the way. So that was interesting.
Yeah. There's something I was going to add. Oh, so Garrett. Unbeknownst to you, you might know this from reading one of the guides, because you haven't gotten to this part of the game yet, but because you're doing the kind of the final boss run at the moment.
So it's funny. I was going through the crystal bosses and the Tyrant Star.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, dude! At this point, I'm like, just let me face the boss.
So fun fact, Garrett. This is what I was about to bring up. All of those bosses in the Crystal Star are optional.
I know they're optional, but you weaken the final boss.
That's true. If you want to just go to the final boss, if you don't kill any of them, there is a super secret final boss that you face.
What? I didn't know that. Okay, interesting.
Because there's like a trophy or achievement for killing a specific boss that's at the end of the game, and you can only get it if you don't kill any of those bosses. Yep.
I'll probably.
Now you know how I felt when I was playing during like the review period, and I was like, "Oh, man, now I have to kind of do the whole game over again because I don't have a save here."
Oh, you didn't have a save there.
No, and the achievements or trophies list wasn't available at that time, so I had no idea.
Wow. Okay. I don't know if I'm gonna do it. I think I'll just look it up. I'm getting a little. I just want to be done. With it at this point. But that's interesting. A secret boss if you don't attack any of the crystal monsters.
He's apparently very hard.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What did you think of the dragons when you faced them the first time?
I didn't have too much trouble with 2 of the 3 of them.
Oh, okay.
But one of them, it like really, really got me. It was like really hard. But I liked that there was like a big quest line to go on to get like the ultimate weapon for your main character, Like I kind of miss that because that was something that used to happen a lot in older RPGs like PS1 or Super Nintendo role-playing games. Like Final Fantasy VII as an example, there's like a whole quest line you go on to get like Cloud's best weapon in the game. And it kind of reminded me of that where I kind of like liked that it kind of harkened back to like classic role-playing games where they kind of gave you that quest to go on to get like the best weapon in the game.
Yeah. It was interesting to go through the dragons. I felt like it was not, it was hard. It was like a very uptick in battle, but I think it was more of a puzzle than anything. It wasn't like, oh, this monster's so strong. It's like, no, it's repelling everything.
Yeah. You have to figure out the specific weaknesses or like, I think one of them was resistance to everything, and you had to like use like abilities to remove its resistances to things.
Yeah, so that was a strategy. One was I think Juna have to kind of apply the weaknesses or any other
any other Persona Master, Garret. Which I love that's a job. Harkening back
Persona
to
Master,
like, Persona Master, where you're changing out masks to like personas, which I thought that was cool.
And then the other big thing that really saved me in the dragons was I had Heisme's. I had Heisme. He has high agility, and then what I did is I locked in. I equipped the Dodger Ring with Heisme before he even got his final skill with the Royal Archetype. So any miss with Heisme, it eliminates all the enemy turns. It was that, and then what I also did is I kind of put in Knight's Proclamation skill with him, and that's what I'm still doing. It's like, okay, let's go into it, do Knight's Proclamation, so you are targeted, and now he has like super high evasion, he has super high agility, and then sometimes even for the bosses, I have Juna in there to add in Debilitate on the monsters, so their evasion's lower and defense and attack is lower, and that's just a monstrous kind of tactic. You just let the enemy miss every time. It's the greatest feeling. So
because like I didn't go that route with the knight abilities. Like I kind of had Hulkenberg kind of like equip a bunch of equipment and have a bunch of like skills to basically beef up her defense and hit points, and then I would use the Knight's Proclamation to then like force them to attack her, like always, and that really saved my bacon so many times against many of the bosses, because she would just take almost all the damage throughout the game, and I would just every once in a while I would just make sure she's top.
Yeah, it makes sense. I feel like there were some like imbalances with the Magla and the skills a little bit, especially late game.
Yep.
I actually did not realize it when I was going through Tyrant Star. I actually went through all of those crystal monsters without any Magla potions or anything like that. And then I looked up and the guy's like, yeah, you can go back and heal. I'm like, what?
Yep.
That's crazy. So I just did that to just replenish all my Magla, my MP points. But
if you're gonna fight all of them, you're gonna need to do that.
Oh yeah, for sure. I still have items. We didn't really mention items in the non-spoiler stuff, but I felt like the cooking items was a lot more important in this game than any other, or a lot of other turn-based role-playing games.
Because a lot of them really use like cooking as like a throwaway thing. Like it's not really like the cook items aren't really better than a lot of the items you usually get in most games. But this one, that actually did matter.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed, finding the ingredients, cooking the right stuff, and then you get to a point where, you get speed cooking, and then you get double the portions, and then there was some items, battle items, that were they're super critical in the battle. I love the invincible and finisher noodles, the one that makes you impervious to attacks in the action combat, and also one hits. That saved my bacon a lot of the times when I was going throughout the dungeons, is making sure I have those in place. So I think that's
I think
pretty much it.
I think we made it to the end, Garrett. I think
We did it.
all in all, I'm glad that, first of all, I'm glad that you played this game, Garrett, and I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I know it was a huge time sink for you, but
It was yeah.
But I love this game a lot. I can't wait actually when you do actually finish it to talk about the ending a little bit with you when you get there, because there's some stuff yet that'll be like that I thought was like really interesting. So
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, and I apologize. I wasn't able to finish it. I thought I was like, okay, I'm near the end, and I'm like, okay, another 3 hours of replaying all the crystal
again,
boss.
you could have just gone straight to the final boss and not worried about it.
Well, it sounded like a lot more of a struggle if I did that.
Probably, yeah.
Oh my goodness. And then actually, the last thing, I've been playing it really on Steam Deck most of the time. And it's really because of the suspend feature that's in that game. I really like the suspend. And you could do that on PlayStation and Xbox, so it's not. And
I was gonna say it lived on my quick resume on Xbox the entire time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I played it on PC, it would have been a lot more of a struggle because it's really less, especially when you're in the middle of a dungeon. It's really less convenient. To just shut down the game. And then also it ran really well on my Steam Deck. I was able to play log 30 frames, 720p for the most part.
That's good.
Didn't drain the battery so much. It was about 3 to 4 hours of battery life. And I was able to dock it as well, and it did a pretty good job. So
yeah. Whereas on Xbox, like the frame rate was just all over the place.
Oh, you can't lock it.
No, it basically like went like this between 30 and 60 frames per second.
That's rough.
Video for audio listeners. It was kind of ridiculous.
Oh man. Well, I'm sure it'll be Switch 2 capable because I went through Steam Deck just fine. So
I would assume so. Like, yeah, this is one of those games where it's just like I know like the moment that they announce that they do either during the first direct or it'll be like within the launch window. This is one of those games that'll instantly be announced for Switch 2. Yeah, just like Persona 3 Reload. I think they'll announce both those at the same time.
Metaphor ReFantazio, the definitive edition.
Oh God. Where they just add more stuff to
and then a couple years later, Metaphor ReFantazio, the ReFantastical edition, where we add another 60 hours of content.
No, just make it stop.
They're going to do it. You know they're going to do it. They didn't announce any DLC.
I just want them to do Metaphor 2 instead.
I know.
Or do something else.
A
Catherine
sequel.
2. I would rather have Catherine 2 than that.
Catherine 2 would be nice. Yeah, pretty much.
Something tells me Catherine 2's never happened.
They're on Persona 6 now.
Yeah.
Trying to get that thing out. So, wonder when we'll see that.
Garrett, I'm officially going to turn off the Metaphor spoilers banner.
Go for it. Mm-hmm.
So no more Metaphor spoilers. Don't spoil anything about Metaphor at this point.
Man, I can't believe. No, I'm just kidding.
Get out. Oh my God. But anyways, this was a fun show. I can't I would love to hear from other people what they thought about Metaphor. Mm-hmm. Please let us know in the comments below or just hit us up in the Discord. But Garrett, before we go, of course, we got to say thank you to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/Carpool Gaming, starting with our ultimate producers, Jonathan Brown, the man behind the music on the Xbox Drive and the PlayStation Drive. He has a brand new deluxe version of his album, Me, Myself, and I, that just came out yesterday, Garrett. New songs. Well, I think one of the songs features $2 Hero, who we might know. Who we might know that person.
I know that guy. He likes Fuga, Melodies of Steel, like me.
He does. He does like Fuga Melodies of Steel. He's also a big Citizen Sleeper fan. So make sure to check out Jonathan Brown's brand new music as well as his other music because it's pretty great over at his Linktree, linktr.ee/pme.gib. Cwagmire, who humbly reminds you that the best babes are Xenobabes, and TechMike, who says, whether you're Kevesi or Agnian, you're a Xenobabe at heart. Links to all of our ultimate producers can always be found in the description of our podcast, so make sure to check them out because they're really awesome. Our platinum producers, Smokin Joe, Solo, the Captain, and Tim Paullin, and our gold members, Adam K, Anna, Awesome Dave 1337, Brad Moore, Brian Reese, Cecily Carrozza, Dan and Luma, Dannohh, Emily O'Kelly, John 32, Ligerwoods 330, OldMrFrump, Patrice Mallette, Peje, Riley King, our newest gold member, of course, Shane Erickson, Stephen Keller, TheDonRob, the Jiggy Collector, and Toxic. Huge thank you once again to all of our patrons over at patreon.com/carpoolgaming. If you want to hop in the car with us, head on over there, choose the tier that's right for you. And now, Garrett, plugs go.
You can follow me on Blue Sky. What was my latest post on that thing? I think it was about Zelda 2, actually.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm still playing that.
Only good things to say about Zelda 2, I'm also assuming as well. Nothing bad is possibly coming out of Garrett's mouth about Zelda 2. Only good stuff.
I met the guy, I Am Error.
Yes. A classic.
A classic. I actually never knew about this one.
Oh, you didn't?
No,
you never saw the meme?
No, I didn't see the meme. I just talked to a random guy and he's like, I am Error. I'm like, this is what it was like back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, imagine playing that game with no guide, Garrett, and you're just like, this guy is like, you're relying on the villagers to tell you what to do, and the guy is just like, I am Error.
I could just imagine just like a late teens, early 20-year-old person smoking a joint, playing Zelda 2. It's like, and just sees I Am Error. It's like, whoa. Yep. It's trippy. Anyways, yeah, Zelda 2 is going well. So I have made good progress, and I'll let you know when we're ready for that spoiler cast of Zelda
Please,
2.
You haven't even got past. You've still got 5 more palaces to go. So this is going to be a long
I'm on
journey.
the second palace.
Oh, okay. I know the last time we talked to you, had only finished the first one. So
yeah, I'm on the second one right now.
Yeah.
I have actually a lot more time to do that because that's my commuter game. So I just hop on a bus and flip my Ambernick device open, and I'm ready to go. So
nice. And then you get to listen to some awesome tunes while you're on the road because Zelda 2 has some great music.
Oh, I should probably listen to it at some point. Sorry, I was listening to podcasts, but I'll definitely check out the sounds.
I was gonna say, music. Most people, when they play Smash Brothers for the first time, they hear the temple theme and they're like, what Zelda game is that from? Because it's not from any of the other Zelda games except for Zelda 2. That's where the
oh really the Hyrule one?
Yeah, it's it's the one that's like do 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 do. That's the temple theme from the palace theme from Zelda 2, but they use it as the main kind of theme from the palace level in Smash Brothers for the Zelda level.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. I'm actually pretty excited to talk about this game with you.
Oh my God!
Later.
Yeah,
not right now.
We got to save it. We got to put a pin in it, Garrett.
Well, we'll put a pin in it. All right.
Yeah. Well, as for me, Garrett. Oh, you're also in the Discord as well.
I'm on the Discord. I read every message. I think an RPG cave.
Yeah.
Not anywhere else though.
No.
I'm in the PC gaming one a little bit more. Just scoping it out. I'm with the boys now. I'm building the PC soon. Inevitable. So. Nice. I'm ready.
As for me, you can always find me in the Discord at Ryan Turford. I'm not really on social media, but I am on backlogged.com at Ryan Turford, where I'm posting little mini reviews of all the games I've been playing. I just posted one for Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which was the game I played this week.
Nice, dude.
And I'm currently playing Life is Strange Double Exposure because I missed out on it last year.
Yeah.
But I'm actually liking it so far. People complained about that one, but I'm like, I actually kind of like this game, but I'm interested to see how that'll hold past because I just finished episode 1 for Life is Strange. So I'm curious to know if it'll, sustain past the later episodes. I was also thinking about streaming today because the Royal Rumble is tonight, and I was going to plan out a little tournament bracket for the Royal Rumble to pick out the next game I was going to play, Garrett, but I am in a lot of pain today, so I am probably not going to do that.
Yeah, just rest up and get some meds in and just chill.
Yeah. I might watch the Royal Rumble tonight. We'll see. But
is Royal Rumble the wrestling thing?
It is a wrestling thing. Yeah,
I got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, awesome. I don't even really watch wrestling, but it's fun the Royal Rumble is one of those things, Garrett, where it's it's one of those times where it's even though I don't like wrestling, I can actually get into the Royal Rumble and be interested in it because it's basically you have four people who start the match in the ring together, and every minute a new wrestler chosen at random comes in, and until all 40 wrestlers are defeated and they get knocked out of the ring and stuff. It's pretty fun.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Sounds like a show. Very entertaining.
I mean, it's on Netflix now, so you don't even have to really go out of your way for a pay-per-view or anything.
Yeah.
But anyways, this has been the RPG Cave, level 174. Garrett Bland. I'm Ryan Turford. We're out.
Bye-bye.